Imagine waking up tomorrow to find out your computer has just been quietly writing a diary about you.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's been observing your habits, synthesizing context from your conversations, and, storing permanent memories about your life that you never explicitly shared.
Right. Just silently building a profile.
Exactly. And now, imagine that happening in the exact same week that governments around the world are frantically trying to figure out how to put a leash on artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and at the same time, you have Wall Street suddenly treating computer chips like fleets of commercial airplanes.
It is just a massive collision of forces. I mean, you have this invisible autonomous software suddenly making decisions about you, and it's running on physical hardware that requires billions of dollars and actual gigawatts of power.
Oh, while regulators on, 3 different continents are trying to write the rules in real time. It's wild.
It is the kind of week that completely redefines the landscape. So, welcome to our deep dive. Today is Saturday, June 6, 2026, and we are unpacking the data collected from the historic week of May 30 to June 6, 2026.
Yes, you are listening to Macroeconomy AI, and this is the AI Observatory : Week of May 30 to June 2026.
And it's wonderful to be here to help synthesize all of this with you. The sheer volume of global maneuvers we've tracked this week makes it feel like the entire chessboard of the technology sector is just being flipped over.
Yeah, it really does.
And we want to sincerely thank you, the listener, for joining us on this journey. We know your time is valuable, and we deeply appreciate you spending it here with us.
We really do.
Before we jump into the deep end, please hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and share this deep dive with anyone who needs to stay ahead of the curve.
Today's broadcast is brought to you by our incredible sponsors who, make this level of deep analysis possible.
Channel Macroeconomy AI is dedicated to bringing a compilation of analyses and news on macroeconomics, technology, and artificial intelligence.
And speaking of our sponsor, if you're looking to optimize your own data workflows in this rapidly changing environment, check out Datasphere Analytics. They provide seamless cloud integration for the modern enterprise.
So, okay, to start making sense of this week, we really have to look at the rules of the game. Because, frankly, you can't understand the technology moves without understanding the regulatory walls closing in around them.
That is exactly where my mind went when I was reading through our research. I mean, we saw a dizzying 48-hour whirlwind in the United States alone.
Okay, let's unpack this. To set the premise here, we had two massive moves back-to-back. On June 2nd, President Trump signed a deregulatory executive order focused on AI and cybersecurity.
Right.
But then, right on its heels, Congress introduced the bipartisan Great American AI Act. And, it felt almost contradictory at first glance. What was the underlying strategy there?
It's a really fascinating two-step dance. The executive order actively avoids new, heavy-handed direct regulations. Instead, it creates a voluntary 30-day pre-review window.
Voluntary.
Yeah, strictly voluntary.
Yeah.
If you are a developer building a frontier model, you can submit it to the government before you release it to the public.
Okay.
And then the NSA runs it against classified benchmarks to check for extreme risks like, cybersecurity or bioweapon vulnerabilities. It's a soft power approach.
Right. But the Great American AI Act from Congress has a very different, very specific underlying goal, which is preempting state laws for 3 years.
Exactly. They are trying to put a total freeze on individual states taking matters into their own hands.
And I have to assume that is a direct reaction to what just happened in Florida, because while Washington was drafting these, voluntary federal frameworks, Florida went in the complete opposite direction.
They absolutely did. Florida made history this week by becoming the first state to criminally sue OpenAI and its CEO, Sam Altman, personally.
Wow. And just to be clear to you listening, we are presenting this strictly based on the legal filings, taking no political sides whatsoever. We're just looking at the mechanics of the market here.
Right, exactly.
Florida's Attorney General filed a massive 83-page lawsuit. The allegations cover safety failures, deceptive trade practices, and specifically the collection of data from minors without parental supervision.
Yeah, and the lawsuit explicitly points to the tragic 2025 Florida State University incident, claiming the perpetrator consulted ChatGPT before the attack.
And OpenAI, for its part, firmly denies any responsibility for that event, maintaining that they have robust, industry-leading protections for minors already in place.
Right. But from a macroeconomic perspective, you can instantly see why Congress is suddenly trying to step in and freeze state-level actions.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, if every single state can file criminal charges against tech executives based on the behavior of an end user, the entire American tech industry would just face an existential operational crisis.
It's total paralysis by litigation. But what really stood out to me in the notes is the stark contrast when you look across the Atlantic.
Oh, yeah.
Over in the European Union, they aren't dealing with a patchwork of state lawsuits. They are methodically building a massive regulatory machine.
Precisely. The EU just operationalized their AI Act. On June 1st, the European Commission officially appointed a 60-member scientific panel and an advisory forum.
And these aren't politicians, right?
No, not at all. These are top independent experts in frontier AI, complex systems auditing, and social impact. And they are doing this because they are gearing up for August 2026.
Which is when the heaviest obligations go live.
Right, specifically targeting general-purpose AI models and auditing for systemic risks.
And then, we drop down to South America, and Brazil is accelerating too. Chamber President Hugo Mata just ended all the legislative delays.
Yeah, that was a huge move.
He set a firm schedule to vote on their PL 233823 AI legal framework by the end of this month, June 2026. It categorizes AI systems by risk level and threatens fines of up to 50 million reals for infractions.
Wow.
So looking at all of this together, it feels exactly like the early days of traffic laws. You have Europe over there meticulously building traffic lights, speed cameras, and printing out 500-page driver's manuals.
Right, a highly structured top-down infrastructure.
Exactly. And then you have the U.S. federal government basically telling car makers, hey, just self-report your top speeds to us if you want. It's voluntary. Meanwhile, states like Florida are suddenly running out onto the highway trying to criminally arrest the mechanics.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the real risk here is severe compliance fragmentation.
Yeah.
Think about the operational nightmare for an AI developer today. How do you actually code a single, unified frontier model that can legally operate across Florida, France, and Brazil simultaneously without breaking at least one of their conflicting laws?
It almost seems mathematically impossible. You can't be entirely transparent for one audit while perfectly preserving privacy for another, while also navigating state-level criminal liabilities.
Exactly. We're moving away from the era of a borderless, globalized internet and entering an era of heavily bordered, hyper-localized digital jurisdictions.
That is a terrifying thought for any developer just trying to launch a product. But here's the part that completely threw me when I was reviewing the week's data.
What's that?
All of these regulators, all these lawsuits, they are fighting over software, the invisible code. But you can't run any of the software without massive, incredibly heavy physical hardware.
Oh, absolutely.
The real-world weight of artificial intelligence is just staggering right now.
We constantly use the term the cloud, which, sounds weightless and ethereal. But the cloud is heavily industrial.
So true.
It's made of steel, thousands of tons of silicon, and requires immense amounts of electricity. And the capital expenditure we saw deployed this week proves that the physical layer is where the real war is being fought.
Let's look at these numbers because they are almost hard to comprehend. SoftBank just committed 75 billion euros to build AI data centers in France.
75 billion.
And they aren't just talking about server racks. They are partnering with Schneider Electric and EDF to build 5 gigawatts of power capacity. The first 3.1 gigawatts are due by 2031. To put that in perspective, 5 gigawatts is enough power to run multiple major cities.
And it's not just the total power, it's the density. Training these frontier models requires running tens of thousands of chips at maximum capacity for months at a time.
Right.
The heat generated is astronomical. You aren't just powering the chips, you are powering the massive industrial liquid cooling systems required to keep the building from literally melting down.
Which brings us to the actual chips inside those buildings. Apollo and Blackstone just structured a $36 billion private credit deal.
The largest private credit deal in history, by the way.
Yes. And they did it just to buy Google TPU chips, which they are then going to lease back to Anthropic. And Anthropic's valuation, just a note, just hit $965 billion.
Which brings Anthropic dangerously close to the trillion-dollar club.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating here is the mechanics of that Blackstone and Apollo deal, because it is entirely novel.
Okay, how so?
They created a special purpose vehicle specifically to acquire these physical Google Tensor Processing Units, TPUs, which are co-developed with Broadcom, who's acting as a guarantor.
Got it.
They buy the hardware and then lease the compute time back for data centers across New York, Texas, Louisiana, and Indiana.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Is AI compute becoming the new commercial aviation?
That's a fun way to look at it.
I mean, I'm looking at this and marveling that computer chips are now being financed and leased exactly like fleets of Boeing 747s or telecommunications towers. You don't buy the plane, you lease it from a massive holding company.
Right.
Now, AI companies don't buy the chips, they lease the compute from a private credit vehicle. But I have to push back on this a little.
Yeah.
A Boeing 747 can fly for 30 years. A computer chip is functionally obsolete in maybe 3 years. Why would private equity treat a rapidly decaying asset like a long-term airplane lease?
That is the critical question. And I need to explicitly pause here to remind you, the listener, as always, this is market analysis, absolutely not investment advice.
Of course.
But structurally, why are they doing this? Because the immediate demand for compute is so overwhelmingly high that the lease rates cover the rapid depreciation of the asset.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wall Street isn't just treating AI as a speculative software bet anymore. They are underwriting the physical, depreciating backbone of it as a fundamental utility. They know Anthropic must have those chips to survive, so the cash flow is practically guaranteed in the short term.
That makes total sense. Wall Street acts as the landlord, collecting rent on the picks and shovels, which perfectly explains the panic we are seeing from the European Union. They announced a massive 420 billion euro tech sovereignty package this week.
Yes, comprising the CHIPS Act 2.0 and the Cloud and AI Development Act. The European Commission formally admitted they are dependent on external, non-European providers for over 80% of their critical digital services and products.
That's a huge dependency.
So they are trying to spend nearly €500 billion to triple their data center capacity by 2036.
But wait, I have to challenge this strategy. Throwing €500 billion at building concrete buildings and buying chips is great for infrastructure, but isn't Europe already years behind on the actual model training?
They are.
If they build these massive sovereign data centers, aren't they just going to be running American or Asian brains inside them? Does owning the building even matter if you don't own the intelligence running on the servers?
It is a massive vulnerability, and you've hit on the exact flaw in their strategy. Owning the physical infrastructure is step one. Ensuring your data doesn't physically leave your borders.
Right.
But if the software processing that data is licensed from a U.S. tech giant, true sovereignty is basically an illusion. Europe realizes that if they don't at least control the hardware layer now, they will be forever renting their entire technological future from foreign conglomerates.
Okay, so the hardware layer is being funded with unprecedented amounts of private and public cash. Wall Street is the new landlord, and the regulators are circling the wagons. With all of that as the physical foundation, what exactly are the tech giants building on top of it this week? Because reading the ecosystem updates, the shifting alliances are giving me whiplash.
Whiplash is the perfect word. We are seeing a complete redefinition of frenemies in the tech sector right now. The companies that are supposed to be competing are deeply entangled, and the companies that were partners are pulling apart.
Let's start with Apple and Google. According to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman previewing WWDC 2026, Apple is reportedly paying Google $1 billion a year to rebuild Siri in iOS 27.
Yeah, it's huge.
Siri is being rebuilt as a standalone chatbot powered by a custom 1.2 trillion parameter Gemini model. It will process via Apple's private cloud compute.
To translate that scale, a parameter in an AI model is roughly equivalent to a synaptic connection in a human brain. It's how the model weighs information and makes connections.
Okay.
A 1.2 trillion parameter model is staggeringly massive. Apple, despite all its wealth, realizes that training a frontier model from scratch to compete with Google or OpenAI is simply too resource-intensive right now.
Right.
So they just pay their biggest mobile rival $1 billion a year for the privilege of using their brain. And similarly, Amazon AWS just made OpenAI's frontier models, GPT 5.5, and the Codex agent generally available on Bedrock for their enterprise customers.
So you have Apple relying on Google and Amazon deeply integrating OpenAI. But then we look at Microsoft, who has historically been OpenAI's biggest backer, investor, and partner.
Right. They practically funded them.
At the Microsoft Build 2026 conference in San Francisco, CEO Satya Nadella revealed the MAI family of models, developed completely internally under Mustafa Suleyman. MAI code for programming and MAI voice.
This is a seismic shift. Microsoft is entirely signaling a strategic distancing from OpenAI.
Yeah, sure seems like it.
They even introduced the Windows Agent framework and a new quantum chip called Majorana 2 to support the massive underlying compute needs. But the real story is that they are positioning the Windows operating system itself as the execution layer for autonomous agents.
Wait, unpack that for me. What does an operating system acting as an execution layer for an autonomous agent actually look like for the user?
Think about how you use a computer today. You open Excel, you click Insert Chart, you format the cells, you save the file. You are the operator.
Right, I'm doing the work.
Under this new framework, the operating system becomes the employee. You just tell Windows, review these 3 PDFs, and build a financial forecast model. The Windows OS understands the intent, physically takes control, opens the applications, moves the data, and completes the task autonomously across different software programs. Microsoft wants Windows to be the ultimate agent. Why? Because they see that Anthropic currently dominates over 34% of the corporate AI coding market. Microsoft wants to own that capability independently without relying on OpenAI.
But OpenAI is not just sitting there watching Microsoft pivot away. They launched a massive counteroffensive this week. They expanded Codex from just a programmer's autocomplete tool into a massive enterprise operating platform.
Yeah, that growth is insane.
They've hit 5 million weekly users. And here's the crazy statistic. 20% of those users are non-technical. The tool is growing 3 times faster with regular business users than with software engineers. They added 62 specific enterprise plugins for finance, marketing, and legal.
And they are pushing aggressively into highly specialized, highly lucrative verticals. OpenAI published a major update to GPT Rosalind, their life sciences model.
Right, I saw that.
It's combining the coding agility of GPT 5.5 with deep, specific intelligence in medicinal chemistry and experimental biology. They are partnering with Novo Nordisk and even launching a biodefense program for governments.
And the technical notes mentioned Rosalind is using 31% fewer tokens for complex biological analysis. I read that and thought, okay, efficiency is good, but why does token efficiency actually matter in a field like biology?
It is the difference between reading a summary and seeing the whole picture. Think of a token as a piece of a puzzle. Biological data, like a massive DNA sequence or a folded protein, represents tens of thousands of puzzle pieces.
Okay, that makes sense.
If your model requires too many tokens to process an image, it runs out of working memory. By reducing the tokens needed by 31%, Rosalind isn't just faster. It means the AI can hold much larger, vastly more complex molecular structures in its working memory all at once. It analyzes the entire chemical reaction without losing the thread of the data.
That makes total sense. So what does this all mean, looking at this battlefield? Apple controls the phone, Microsoft controls the PC, and OpenAI and Anthropic are building these incredibly efficient, powerful brains. Who holds the ultimate power here? Is it the company that makes the underlying AI model, or the company that owns the operating system where the user actually lives and clicks?
This raises an important question, and I think the answer to who wants the ultimate power lies in OpenAI's most controversial launch of the entire week, because OpenAI might be trying to bypass Windows and iOS entirely.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they want to become the operating system of your life. I'm talking about the release of Dreaming v3.
Ah, the persistent memory system for ChatGPT. They just rolled it out to paid users, and it's coming to free users soon, apparently, because they somehow managed to cut the computational cost of running it by 5 times.
Exactly. And on paper, the performance leap is undeniable. The factual accuracy in their internal benchmarks jumped from 41.5% in 2024 to 82.8% now. The AI actually remembers who you are. But it's the underlying mechanism that is raising massive red flags in the privacy community. Dreaming v3 utilizes an autosynthetic memory architecture.
Meaning it quietly synthesizes context from your multiple past conversations without you ever pushing a save button or intervening. It reads between the lines of your prompts.
Precisely. According to the data released, 96% of these permanent memories are created unilaterally by the system itself.
That's wild.
You don't tell it to remember your dog's name or your political leanings. It deduces them and writes them down in its internal database. And critically, 28% of those unilateral records contain GDPR-protected personal data.
That is a massive collision course with the European regulators we talked about in the very first segment. Europe is building rigid audit structures, and OpenAI is releasing a system that unilaterally records protected personal data.
It's the ultimate tension of the modern web. Absolute privacy versus hyper-personalization. We all claim to want privacy, but in practice, users want an AI assistant that just knows them.
Yeah, we want the convenience.
Exactly. You want it to remember your preferences, your tone, and your context without having to repeat it every single chat session. But to achieve that frictionless magic, the AI has to constantly observe you, synthesize behaviors, and store permanent conclusions about who you are, what you care about, and who you interact with.
It's deciding what's important about you and writing it down in its own digital diary. It's a completely wild shift in how we interact with machines.
And before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over, connecting all these dots together. We have Microsoft turning Windows into an execution layer for fully autonomous agents capable of taking actions across your applications.
Right.
And we have systems like Dreaming V3 unilaterally creating synthesized memories and context about your life without your direct input. So what happens when a fully authorized autonomous agent makes a critical life decision for you, maybe executing financial trade or sending an aggressive legal email on your behalf, and it bases that irreversible decision on a hallucinated memory it quietly synthesized about you 3 years ago?
Oh, wow.
A hallucination that you never reviewed, never approved, and never even knew existed until the agent acted upon it.
That is the terrifying, incredible frontier we are standing on today. And on that note, we must provide our mandatory disclaimer. Please note, this content is strictly of an informative and educational nature, compiling public market data, projections, and analyses.
Right.
This material does not express any ideological bias and does not constitute investment recommendation, financial, legal, or tax consulting of any nature. Economic and technological projections are subject to frequent revisions in light of new data and market facts.
Exactly.
Likewise, past performance does not guarantee future returns. The purpose of this space is to introduce concepts and stimulate academic and professional debate. Strategic, financial, or asset decisions require deep and personalized analyses. Therefore, always consult qualified professionals and specialists before making your decisions.
Well said.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We invite you to join us for all our future broadcasts as we continue to track these massive shifts in technology and economics. That was today's Macroeconomy AI. We'll leave it here. You all stay well and keep an eye out for our new broadcasts. Subscribe to our channel, access the links, and follow Macroeconomy AI on social media.
Bye.
Bye.